Hey there, I'm here today for Transformation Tuesday with my dear friend April Ross. And we are going to talk a little bit about Tantra and the journey that April has taken in the world of Tantra, from being a somewhat dissatisfied or extremely dissatisfied
Very dissatisfied.
housewife to living a life of absolute love and abundance. And first, can I just have you introduce yourself, April?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm April Ross, International Queen of Connection and Intimacy, and I do online coaching, workshops, published author, world-class speaker, so that you can find me pretty much all over the internet. And if you are really lucky at an in-person event.
Awesome. And from what I understand, you have some events coming up. We'll talk about that towards the end of our interview. But for those who are tuning in to Transformation Tuesday, maybe possibly for the first time, I started doing these interview series as a way to kind of shine some light into the world of Tantra and what is Tantra, what is not Tantra. And I swear, if I had a nickel for every time that someone told me that Tantra is all about sex, boy, would I have a abundant bank account at this point. So part of the purpose of this interview series is to dispel the myths of what Tantra is or is not. And I was chatting with April, who I've known for about 4 years now. I think about 4 years ago is when we very first met. We've got to know each other a little better over time. And so I've seen the growth in you, April, specifically over the years. And I've seen how the Tantra tools have impacted your life and given you tools to flourish and build a business, which your online presence is amazing, I might add. So anybody who doesn't know who you are, I'm going to make sure you have some links in the comment section under here on how to find you. But let's just start with that. If somebody wanted to find you, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, so if you want to find my day face corporate trainer, author, speaker, you could just look for April A. Ross. If you are looking for Tantra, massage events, you would want, and healing sessions, energetics, you would want to search for Goddess Aphrodite. So I have aphroditehope.com is my Aphrodite website, and coming soon, aprilross.com is going to be an app where you can actually go in and experience different things.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll give a little reminder of that at the end of our interview. But first, I want to talk about your life before Tantra. And I know, based on some things that we've talked about in the past, it sounded to me like you were the atypical stay-at-home housewife with a very unfortunate, dissatisfied marriage that had a complete lack of sex, as I understand it, and or very dissatisfying sex.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have had almost the same conversation with dozens of married women at this point. It seems like it's a normal, almost normal, sadly normal conversation that I've had. Now that I think about that and I've actually said it out loud, it's almost like I almost expect people to tell me that their sex life is horrible. I think when we were talking to, what I wanted to highlight was you came from a religious background.
Yeah,
upbringing?
originally, I was raised Christian.
Christian. And so how did that tie into your marriage?
Well, I wanted to be like, so I already felt horribly shameful and worthless because I had had sex before marriage with my high school college boyfriend. And so when I started actually going to church regularly for the first time is when I met my now ex-husband, and he was a virgin. And so I wanted to be in integrity with preserving his virginity before marriage, even though my Christian mother did warn me that that's a bad idea. She's like, try before you buy. But, I wanted to be in integrity. And that was the worst decision ever because we got back from our honeymoon and things were already falling apart. So it was one of those, I was miserable for 12 years because I refused to admit after, 6 months of preparation, I refused to throw away the 6 months that we spent preparing for, our wedding and marriage, even though, he was yelling at me and treating me like garbage, which is that lined up with where my self-worth was at the time, sadly. But I chose, instead of getting out of that, I'm like, well, maybe I can just steer the ship in a good direction. And so I'm like, I had to be the man and the woman in the marriage. And, there's nothing that's going to kill off your receiving more than being in masculine energy. So from the very get-go, basically, we were fucked.
That's truly sad.
Yeah.
And did you try any traditional marriage counseling, marriage therapy of any sort?
We did. I mean, the only thing he was open to was working with pastors at churches. Like he was not open to, an actual non-religious affiliated licensed marriage and family therapist. He was extra not open to like sex therapy. And so, he could have 7 orgasms a day. So it didn't matter to him, but I never had one. Like, I was very honest with him that in my previous relationship, I'd faked orgasms like the entire time. And the hardest part was I was very open and vulnerable. And I told him, I'm like, I won't lie to you. I will never fake it. And that's almost more disgusting because he knew for the entire 12 years that I never had an orgasm when we had sex. And I had to hide them in the closet or wait till he fell asleep and try not to make a sound. Yeah. And that was humiliating. And I didn't have the confidence or the tools to communicate. And even when I did, we would only make progress until we would have sex once, and then things would go completely back to the way they were normal. And I'm like, I made a lifelong commitment to someone who's treating me like a whore or a one-night stand. And that
Wow.
was just, I mean, as if my self-esteem wasn't already low, going into the marriage, it just got lower and lower. And I went in and out of bouts of suicidal depression.
Wow, that's pretty intense. So is it safe to assume that there were other issues in the relationship that were not working other than just the lack of sex and sexual satisfaction?
That was really the pivotal thing, because it's like it caused a breakdown in, since he wasn't open to working on it, it just destroyed the emotional connection between us. It's like it just, yeah, there was, and then, add the Christianity humiliation of if I would say a swear word, he would tell me I was going to hell. So there's, I didn't even know emotional abuse was a thing until after I'd made the decision to get a divorce and started looking it up. And religious abuse is a thing. And I don't like to use that word because I have friends who are Christians who, aren't like that. But yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, April. So I've got this big picture of just like things were horrible in your marriage. You were
Yeah.
looking to get out, and right around that time, you were listening to some music, the radio or something, I believe you told me, and a song
Yes.
came on the radio. What was that song? Tell us about this.
Yeah, it was by Taylor Swift. And I heard the word tantra in the background and I'm like, ooh, I know that I had heard about it before, probably in reference to sex. And I'm like, what is that? And so I Googled tantra, and it's like, I kept it really on the down low though, because when I was until after our divorce was finalized, because I never wanted anyone to ever question my integrity. Like I have never cheated on anyone, never wanted that to be part of the conversation. But after our marriage was over and I started digging into it, I started connecting with people on Facebook, and one of them, told me about, some people in the Tantra community here in San Diego, and there was an actual community. And it changed my whole life.
Wow. To think that you had grown up in such a sheltered upbringing with this
That's
very
the
religious
best word
background.
ever.
And I think that I've heard it said that a lot of religious people are afraid of the radio and its influences on their young people. And
Yeah.
you were definitely a shining example of that fear come to light. I think that's intriguing. So here
Yeah.
you are, you listen to the radio, you hear this Taylor Swift song about Tantra. You
Uh-huh.
decide to Google it, look it up, discover there's a community of Tantra people in San Diego. I might add that yes, San Diego has a booming, growing, blossoming community of Tantra practitioners. And so you moved on down from Seattle, right?
Yep. From rainy,
Seattle to
cold Seattle.
Seattle,
Mhm.
based on having heard a song.
No, not based. No. So the reason I moved to San Diego was actually because originally what gave me the self-confidence to even consider leaving the marriage was hiring a business coach who I thought, it's so funny, I thought he was going to help me learn to have a more profitable horse business. And then I accidentally learned how to not be depressed. And so I decided to start coaching. And I'm like, oh, well, as a coach, I don't have to be stuck in one location to run my business. So then we had two masterminds, one in Santa Monica, one in San Diego. And so I embarked on this like first ever thing that I ever did for myself was I did a round trip, Seattle, San Diego, and back road trip, because after being in Santa Monica, I knew like Southern California was calling me. And so I wanted to know since I have to feel the energy of places. And I'm like, where do I want to land? And so it was it was when I was in San Diego that everything just felt exactly how I wanted it to. And so that's why I picked San Diego, because San Diego felt good.
I would agree. San Diego does feel pretty good. Personally, I've lived here my entire life. I'm a San Diego native. I went to San Diego high school. I went to San Diego Community College, and then I went to San Diego State. And
Mhm.
while I've traveled and been all over the world, San Diego is and always will be my home.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to pay the famed sunshine tax that we pay to be
Yes.
residents here. That's what they call it. But yeah, I visited Seattle, and I thought it was intriguing. There were things that I noticed about up there right away. First of all, the sun set pretty damn early, and it was a
Mhm.
short night, and then the sun was back out, but it was gloomy the whole time.
Mhm.
It seemed like dusk for a good 18 hours,
Mhm.
and then nighttime for 4 hours, and then back to dusk. I thought, wow, this is interesting. I could see how that might have an impact on someone's overall mood.
Yeah.
Uh, so I want to talk a little bit about your overcoming depression and the tools that you got from this first coach. That first coach you had was more about business, but somewhere in there were some mindset tools that you picked up. Was that related to Tantra in any way?
So this is the most beautiful thing. I got so lucky with the coach I picked, because the things that we did in that first mastermind group in Santa Monica, they were the same things that we do at a lot of Tantra events. It's like even Tantra speed date, you know? And so there was a lot of trauma release, energetics, and actually like digging out shitty belief systems that were just not serving me. And that was, what gave me self-confidence, and at least enough, not a ton of self-trust, but at least enough self-trust to know that I didn't want to stay in that marriage. And so what I found was incredible is what I would call like maybe a taste of Tantra that I experienced at the business mastermind in Santa Monica was we would sit across from someone and there would be prompts like, who are you? Then they respond, who are you? And you respond over and over again until you're just in flow and you're really tapping into like the subconscious parts of you. And so when I started, attending Tantra events and we were doing like even deeper and deeper digging, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've already been doing this. It's just, they called them connection exercises in the business workshop. So it's really wild how it kind of went from mindset, trauma release, into Tantra, but it's all, I mean, the word Tantra means woven. I was just going to say it's all interwoven. It's a lot of the same skills and tools, and what I find as a coach and as a tantric healer is different tools are preferable for different people. Like coaching, you're working with the mind most of the time. What I love about Tantra is you can do things like playing with energy and connection, and you can release the same trauma like in a body work session that would take you, a lot of really shitty trauma release. So instead of going into like the memories that might actually re-traumatize you if not done correctly, can be released through like a massage. So I love Tantra because the energetic work, like the way it opens up your body and helps you be more free is like you can interweave it with coaching. And I find it to be, in general, much more fun and much more effective than traditional coaching.
Amazing. So it sounds to me like your primary Tantra toolkit has to do with mindset and coaching. Did I get that right?
No, my primary Tantra toolkit is more around connection exercises, it's like somatic body work. Yeah, and like transformative events. Like I have energetics events that help people clear out like belief systems that are not serving them, or just like evaluate, like, is this serving me? And it's similar to coaching, but it's more fun and it's easier. So why not? I mean, I also do online coaching, but use I use more Tantra tools than I use coaching tools in my business. Like I know you have a communications course that I've taken, and I don't know that that's inherently Tantra, but it's like it's perfect and it's necessary in order for people, men and women especially, to learn how to communicate. And so those kinds of tools are absolutely invaluable.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. So there's a coaching toolkit and a Tantra toolkit, and they kind of interweave. And literally
Yes.
Tantra to weave and loom. You've weaved and loomed them all together to create a hybrid that works for you. I love that. And what I like most about that is as you talk about energetics and connection, communication, intimacy, there is no mention of sex.
Yeah.
And that's
Get
important
to
to
it
me.
eventually.
It's important to me because these things can lead to sex, but oftentimes when we talk about tantra to the general public, people are like, oh, tantra, you teach sex? Well, no, what we teach are connection tools, intimacy tools, vulnerability skills, communication skills, relationship skills, so that maybe eventually you might actually have better sex.
Yeah.
Which that good sex, I'm sure you would agree, revolves around good communication.
Exactly. That's absolutely pivotal. It's like, and part of the reason, my marriage was so shitty is because, the lack of what wasn't working physically in the bedroom was exacerbated by like the fear of communicating in vulnerability. And so you have to have good communication in order for the physical stuff to even be possible. Like if you can't tell your partner, hey, move left or right or up or down, or this feels good and that doesn't, like if you can't do that, you're never going to have a satisfying experience. Or if something feels shitty and your partner is unwilling to receive that, if you're not ever seen or heard, I know those aren't feelings, but still they're words that most people resonate with. Yeah, if you don't feel seen or heard by your partner and you feel as if they just don't care, it doesn't matter how much they do care, because your feelings are going to be getting in the way of being able to actually connect. So it's pivotal. You have to be able to have really good communication skills.
That's amazing. Thanks for that, April. That draws, yeah, that really helps clarify a few things, and I hope that the people watching this totally get that. So you kind of went through this process, and I know that you've had a number of different coaches and tantra teachers and such, and you've kind of grown your business and continued adding onto it as you've gone through the steps here.
Yeah.
And so you talked a little bit about what your business is now and where you came from. Uh, what would you say to somebody who was thinking about getting into Tantra? Would you have any words of advice or wisdom for them?
Yeah, I mean, just do it. Um, just do it. It will only add to your life in a positive way. I think the only people I've seen have difficulty with Tantra are people who maybe like a lot of extended eye gazing is too much. You don't have to dive in head first and do, like a 3 hour, staring into people's eyes event the first time. You can hire a Tantra teacher who, get your feet wet a little bit. Or, I highly recommend people try all different sorts of Tantra events. There's classical Tantra events, there's neo Tantra events, and there are you're the expert on how many lineages there are over how many thousands of years. So believe me, there's a flavor and a lineage that is right for you pretty much no matter what your background is.
I would agree with that. The more I've studied the history, culture, philosophy, and lineages, the more that I've found that there is so much more to learn. And I feel like, especially here in America and probably even in San Diego, a great number of the Tantra events tend to lean more towards the neo-Tantra sexuality side.
Mhm.
And while that's definitely can be a part of Tantra, to me, it's not the primary reason to get into Tantra. I feel like there's sometimes a little bit of a bait and switch that goes on. It's like, well, you think Tantra is about sex, so we're going to put on this event that's about sex, and
Exactly.
invite you to it, and then we're going to trick you into actually participating in some Tantra.
Yes.
And not that that's a bad thing at
No,
all.
it's
There's
good. It's like,
nothing wrong with that at all.
yeah,
But it's kind of, I make jokes about it that it's a bait
yeah,
and switch, and
yeah,
I've noticed that maybe that's why there's such a myth that Tantra's all about sex, because
yeah.
in America there's so much fear, shame, and guilt around sex and sexuality that the mention or talk about sex gets people's ears like perked up, like, wait,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? That's a taboo subject. I'm not so sure we should be talking about that,
Mhm.
but I want to talk about it because it's taboo. And
Exactly.
so then they get tuned in, they get sucked in. They're like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to be part of this. What is it?
Yeah.
What's going on? And for those brave enough to step into that world of taboo, they discover that there's so much more to be learned and experienced. Um, well, yeah. What else would you say to somebody? You have anything else? Any other words of advice or wisdom to somebody considering Tantra or tantric path?
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to touch a little bit on what you said from my perspective about like baiting them in with like a sex event and then giving them Tantra. The funny thing is, it's like, it's a yes and, because in America, sex sells. So I
Yeah,
think, there's a lot of people that beat up on Neo Tantra. But if you lead with what people need the solution to, and you give them the solution, it's really, in that way, it's not a bait and switch. The solution is something different than what they think. They might think like, okay, I need to know how to, it's like, yeah, there's yoni massage classes where you can learn how to, mine is called pleasing a pussy like a god, right? So, it sounds sexy, but what the number one takeaway from that class is ask, communicate, so the skills like from Tantra that relate to what you need in the bedroom and the communication. I also like to say, like, learn how to fuck better than a porn star. Like that's something that'll perk somebody's ear up and get them through the door. And then they learn how to actually create intimacy with their partner in a way where they're hitting a home run every time, because it's not as much like, yes, we teach skills for what you do in the bedroom, in the bed. But what you do before that is the most important part. And those are the skills that we teach that you're not going to find, that Tantra teachers bring in, that you're not going to find from just, a sex ed class.
I like that. I think that's an important aspect. I feel like I grew up in kind of a really blessed environment. Although there was a lot of the religion and repression that went on in my household, the sex piece is something that my parents were actually quite open about. Um, we went to church most Sundays every month, read the Bible pretty regularly in my house, made formal dinners every night. The table was always set to perfection with a fork, knife, spoon, glass, napkin. It was all set up, and we all sit down. And when we were called to come to the dinner table and dinner was served, we were expected to show up hands washed, hair combed, and sit down and fold our hands and wait for everyone to be seated. And then we would do a blessing and family prayer together. We first, pray to God and then pray together. We literally hold hands, and it was such a formality that it really sticks out in my brain. So knowing that I had all of those religious aspects going on in my house, it might shock you to also know that at the very same time, my mother was very open about sex and sexuality. When it was time for us to get the birds and bees talk when we were little, my brother and I, we were about 3 years separate, but my parents decided it was something that we both needed to learn. And I was probably in the 5th or 6th grade, I think, when that first time it was offered at school. But my parents, when it got announced and the permission slips came home, my parents sat down and said, "Listen, we want to give you a little primer. This is what they're going to be teaching you at school." And here's the twist. They explained that that marriage was between a man and a woman, and that sex was between two people who loved each other. And it was intriguing because it was all framed in this very it was still from a religious context.
Yeah.
But nudity was actually accepted in our household growing up. And we had nude art and fine art in the house. I remember clearly there were Olivia posters on the house walls growing up. There were also Frank Frazetta posters. I think Boris Vallejo was also hanging up on the walls somewhere. And there were a few other artists that skipped my mind. But the idea of nudity and sexuality were very expressed in the home. Interestingly enough, I'm an adult and now have fine art and nudity hanging on the walls in my house. I love the art. It's just a thing. And so when I find that people are religious and all their sexuality has been repressed, it kind of baffles me because I got a very different, teaching around that. But it's also primed me for what I do now as a tantra teacher and being able to be open and share everything from the factual birds and bees to about how to create intimacy. And most people never get the intimacy talk. Most people don't get the how to seduce somebody with integrity, of course, with integrity. Or how to touch or please a partner. And I feel like if you're going to develop those skills, hopefully you do, everyone does develop those skills, but most people's sex education comes from that clinical version of what they teach at school combined with what they see in porn. And for most people, they watch the porn and they think that's what sex is supposed to look like. And what has really struck me as odd is it's not just men, it's women too. I've known women who are like, if the man doesn't fuck me the way that I've seen a man fuck a woman in a porno, it's not good sex. And it's just like, wow, that's so infiltrated our society. Porn is so prolific and infiltrated our society so much so that people think that's intimacy.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. So you can see here that the battle that I'm fighting is kind of an uphill battle. Like I really want to teach and educate people about what tantra really is, what intimacy really is, and what sex really has available if you take the tantric tools and apply them to your life. Anyway, I got into a little tangent there, but let's talk a little bit about where you're at now, because I know you have some events coming up. And I think some of our viewers might want to attend a few of those. I'm just going to crack open my mobile device over here because I've got them all listed here. You've got a couple of them here.
Actually, can I go back to something you said really quick?
Sure. While I pull this up, yes.
Yeah, the like learning about sex from porn. It's like that's one of the reasons in my marriage I felt so broken as a person, because it's like even if you watch the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin, it's like, oh, they have sex for 2 minutes and they're both satisfied. It's like, so you can have sex for 2 to 5 minutes, 5 times a day. That's just like, and the that's never going, like, just the penis and the vagina is going to get, like, only 20% of women can have an orgasm from that. And so if that's your idea and you're supposed to have an orgasm, like as a woman, like you're going to feel broken and like there's something horribly wrong with you. And, if you're a guy and you also think that that's the norm, you're going to feel like an absolute failure. You're like, why can't I, make her come? Like it doesn't, and so when that's your standard and that's what you're being shown and told is what's supposed to happen, you're going to fail over and over and over again until you actually learn for what makes your body work and what makes your partner's body work. And there's, that's why tantra is so key, because it's like you can have all the yoni slash pussy massage workshops in the world. You can have all the, lingam penis massage workshops in the world. And those, like, they're necessary. But if you can't communicate, hey, this is what makes me feel pleasure and like I feel most turned on when, like, you're never going to get there, especially women are really never going to get there. And so it leaves both people or multiple people feeling like a failure. And instead of feeling like a failure, you can hit a home run every time. And the difference is actually like it's play, it's pleasure, it's fun, and you end up finding so much deeper connection and intimacy. And it's interesting because our society with the sex forwardness shows, sex is supposed to be fun, exciting, a little taboo, but like it's the best part of everything if you can have the connection.
That's beautiful, April. And I'll add just one little thing to that. What you're suggesting is that for many women, they're not going to be able to get there without that communication.
Yeah.
The deeper into the world of tantra that I've stepped, the more that has become true for me. And as I've talked to other men in the community who are also tantric practitioners, they share this sentiment with me that, yeah, communication is key. Without the communication, we can't create that intimacy or the level of intimacy that one would like to have in order to have that epic, mind-blowing tantric sex.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also add to that I've experienced a fair amount of shame myself with different lovers. When despite knowing these things, excuse me, despite knowing some of these things, that the influence of porn has definitely stuck out in my mind with certain lovers. It's like, oh, well, I cannot, make her happy. And, why can't I make her happy or make her come or give her a squirting orgasm?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side of that, I've actually had more than one lover where they didn't want to communicate. Their idea of sex was that I should just know, that we shouldn't have to talk about it, that it should just happen. And it's like, wow, that toxic paradigm has really, really penetrated both men and women alike. And it's like, do you not know how much more amazing sex and lovemaking can be when you're able to create and communicate really effectively, deeply, intimately? And it's just like, it's, I understand. They're like, oh yeah, I want to get carried away in the heat of the moment to do this, but like, you got to communicate. You just absolutely have to.
That's great. It's like work at like the way I like to approach things, like with a new lover, like, okay, let's see what naturally happens a time or two or three. Then let's work on it and practice what works for each other. And then bring back in the spontaneity, because then you can, yeah, so it's just like But then again, like, it's the communication. It's if you want to have the spontaneity, you get to have that works. You get to have the communication.
Awesome. Thanks, April. Okay, I'm gonna switch this over to talking about upcoming events. And I'm gonna go in order of soonest to later on, if you don't mind.
Problem.
And the first one I'm going to talk about is tomorrow night is the summer solstice. And I am co-facilitating the summer solstice ceremony that we're calling Ignite the Fire Within. We have an amazing outdoor location in Rancho Santa Fe, which is a really nice posh neighborhood in San Diego. We've got a fire pit, a nice dome. We're going to do a little drum circle, then we're going to get together and do a little breath work and meditation, do a really, really tantric ceremony where we step into do some shadow work. And we're going to do a little journaling and, release some stuff in the fire, and then culminate it all with a little dance and authentic relating, and maybe even some touch exercises for those who are open to that. I'm excited because I'm actually working with two amazing facilitators. One is Alaya Soraya Rachel. Her name is a twister, tongue twister. Let's just say Alaya Soraya Rachel. Yeah, there we go. And she's a young tantrika here in San Diego who is wise well beyond her years. Totally amazing individual. And also our breathwork facilitator, Bridget Pordue, is a new transplant from the Midwest. She's also another amazing individual. She's actually a real estate agent by day, tantrika by night, and also an interesting person. If you don't know who she is yet, come to the event, meet her, take a chance. The summer solstice event is really meant to be like a beginner's tip your toe into the world of tantra and just get a taste and see what is it all about. And by the way, we keep our clothes on the whole time. I know some of you listening are like bummed out, like
relieved.
It is. We do keep our clothes on. It's not that kind of event, but then other people are very relieved because it's a beginner event. We're not taking our clothes off. Unless you wear multiple layers and you have something on underneath, because it'll be warm out. It's the middle of summer. Okay, next up on the schedule, Friday night is a monthly event that is an amazing way to meet people and learn about Tantra. It's called Tantra Speed Date. And Tantra Speed Date takes place in the form of a puja. And a puja is a connection ceremony where you're going to meet different people and do different exercises with each person. Literally, we use Tantra Speed Date to teach people life skills, to teach people how to be present, how to communicate, how to ask for what you want, how to call in what you're really looking for, how to release what is no longer serving you, how to create intimacy with somebody in a very short period of time, and get to know somebody at a little bit more, a little deeper than the surface type stuff, like, oh, what do you do for a living? We just skip over all that. We get right to the nitty gritty. And the people who attend Tantra Speed Date often return again and again and again. And they love it. I mean, you can read the reviews of it on the website, and or just come experience it for yourself. It's just an amazing event. Even if you're not looking to date, it's still a fun event to attend. You are more than welcome as a single person to come to the event, and you're not expected to go on any dates. That's the beauty of the Tantra community, is it's always consent-based. We're not pushing anybody into anything, and we don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So we set it up in a really, really nice and safe way for people to participate at their own comfort level.
And people do meet their new partners at Tantra Speed Date. That's I remember you were recently telling me there's been some recent partnerships that have happened from.
There have been, and unfortunately, there's this confidentiality agreement, so I can't go into detail. But yes, there are some new couples that have resulted from attending Tantra Speed Date, and it's really nice to see those relationships grow and flourish, and just watch two people in your community who didn't know each other, and then all of a sudden they're in a relationship, and you're like, okay, yeah, cool. Just going down the list here, Cuddle Party comes up on Sunday. If you are interested in learning about the rules of consent and boundaries, we put together a workshop that makes it a lot of fun. You do not have to cuddle with anyone at a cuddle party ever. You can just come and listen and or observe, be a voyeur. As I like to say, I jokingly say, without the voyeur, the exhibitionist has no one to perform for. So you just want to come to be a voyeur, please, you're more than welcome. We need voyeurs. We need you to be there.
Or you can color.
You can color, you can do a puzzle, you can bring your notebook, you can journal. The only thing that you have to do at a cuddle party is abide by the rules of the cuddle party. We do those twice a month. The next one coming up is on Sunday. The next event after that coming up is our monthly men's group. Every month, a group of us men get together and we do what I would refer to as the hero's journey. We take a trip through the 4 primary masculine archetypes: the lover, the magician, the warrior, and the king. And we really set men up to empower them and send them out and, do a little help to give them emotional support and provide accountability so they can find success in love, life, and relationships. And then soon after that is the authentic relating games. I think April kind of touched on that earlier. I started hosting the authentic relating games because, to be transparent, I would say I used to be a really socially awkward person. I somewhat still am, but there was a time where I had no idea how to start a conversation with somebody. I didn't know how to drop in, be present, get deep, or nothing, or anything of the like. Or even if we did start a conversation, I didn't know where to take it. So the authentic relating games has become an important pillar of my life, and I would love it if you came out and just tried it once. It's an amazing experiment to give that a try. And then next up, I'm really excited about this one because June 29th is our Tantra 101 workshop. April and I have decided that with so many people in our community asking us questions about what is Tantra, what isn't Tantra, that we were going to create a workshop for beginners where you keep your clothes on. Again, I know some of you are super excited about that and others a little disappointed, but this one is, you keep your clothes on, and it really is just about connection and intimacy and vulnerability. And we're going to unload on you a little history lesson and stories of Tantra, and make sure all your questions are answered. And do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, we are going to demystify, like, what is classical Tantra? What is Neo-Tantra? What events might you want to wear your clothes, and at what events can you take them off? And and so I mean, we've talked a lot about it in this, exchange that we've had, but we haven't gone into, specifics and different, very specific types of events, what happens. And then also in Tantra 101, we're going to take, like, you actually will get to experience different types of things from different types of events. So you won't have to guess what kinds of events you might like. You will come away with all the tools of knowing, oh, okay, these are for me and these are not for me. And it's a great foundation to start your exploration. Or learn things even if you've been in Tantra for years. Maybe you don't know what on earth Shiva and Shakti are, and you need like a, you may want a, you might want to know what the different terminology is in Tantra so that you can, like, what are chakras, all those kinds of things. Anything else you want to add to that, JJ?
No, I think that sounds really complete. By the way, there'll be links for all of these events underneath this video. You can also join our email list, tantrasd.com. You can also go to the Facebook page. There's a Facebook business page, which is Tantra San Diego or Tantra SD. And I'll put April's links there as well underneath. But I want to jump right ahead to the next event happening on that next event is Friday, June 30th. We have what we call the Freaky Friday play party with the goddess Aphrodite. Ooh. Freaky Friday play party. So
you will
tell
be
us,
able to take your clothes off.
tell what, and that event does allow for taking your clothes. Tell what's a play party for those who have no idea. What is a play party?
Yeah, so it's a place where you can actually be sensually adventurous, just like a cuddle party. The number one rule, nobody has to play at a play party ever. You can hide in the corner and munch popcorn. But it's also an event where we have an opening circle to set agreement structure, and I like to make sure everyone in the room, as much as possible, is as comfortable and connected to everyone else. And that's what's different about, a tantric play party, temple party, than, some kind of swingers event or club where you just walk in there having sex and you are like having to fend for yourself, and there's no structure. A tantric play party is an opportunity to explore in whatever way is comfortable to you, in an environment with a set container where we lock the doors. No one else can come in after the opening circle and the agreements are discussed. And you get to explore to whatever level you're comfortable, whether that's, just going through the opening circle, whether that's, cuddling, massaging, or having sex, having threesomes, foursomes, moresomes, anything you can imagine can happen at a play party, but it doesn't always happen or need to happen. It's everyone is different, depending on the people that show up and the energy in the room. But it's also your opportunity. I normally charge $400 an hour for sessions. So the big bait is it's your opportunity to learn from me anything you want to learn. And, so if you want to learn more about energetics, and, we can create whatever we want at a play party, any kind of play, and any kind of environment. So it's a place where people come to release shame, release guilt, and if you want to, you can step into the taboo. But it's a create your own adventure.
That's awesome. I feel like that the way you describe it, I'm excited. If I wanted to attend and I was a woman, though, what would you say to the lone single woman who's thinking about attending a play party?
Yeah, excellent. Because it is the safest environment you're going to find to be able to explore, where there's nothing you have to do. You're invited, and we even have an exercise in the opening circle where you get to say no and learn to use your voice. You're going to come away with a set of skills that you probably don't have right now, that are going to enable you to, and empower you to show up as who you want to be in your life and your relationships. And it's extremely powerful. And also, it's entirely consent based. So the guys there, all participants, one of the rules is you have to ask and get a verbal yes before doing anything, like even a hand massage. You will not be touched without your permission. I've never had it and if anything were to ever happen, there's lifeguards on duty, constantly keeping an eye out on the space to make sure people are following the rules. And that, and I've never had a problem, knock on wood, with anyone not following the rules. And we have systems in place in case that were to happen. So it's a very safe, both controlled in the sense of there's a set container, but also freedom to do whatever you want.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. One last question. Do you make a distinction between a play party and a temple party, or are they the same to you?
For me, I use the word play party because that's what most people are familiar with online. Like if I advertise on FetLife that there's a temple party, people are going to think it's religious based, and it's not. So that's why I tend to use that term, but I don't distinguish between a tantric play party and a temple party. There are, of course, a lot of swingers parties and other less safe and friendly environments that are labeled play parties. So in my event descriptions, I make it very clear, like, what's the difference between this and other play parties, and the structure, the opening circle, the fact that we lock the doors, and the cohesiveness of the container. It just allows people to be open and vulnerable. And that's why I think the word temple party is used so much in the Tantra space, because We are there to worship and be worshiped, to adore each other, and and the level at which people are able to connect is very likely why there are rarely to never consent violations at these events, because people are honoring each other. They're not just, even if they're there to get a need met, they're not going to be doing it at the expense of someone else.
I love it, April. Well, you got this pretty dialed in. All right. Well, April, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say to our potential viewers?
Yeah, I was gonna
Final
say
words of wisdom.
well, my freebie that I'm sure you will enjoy is called Ignite the Sex God Within. And the link for that is MF, M as in mother, F as in fucker, sex God.
Oh, I'm laughing at, like, I'm gonna put it
Right? In
let's
case
put it in the
somebody
comments of
doesn't get it.
it's MF. Say it again.
Sex.
MFsexgod.com.
.com. Yeah. So if you don't like swear
MFsexgod.com.
words, it can be most fabulous sexgod.com.
Ah, I love it. I love it. Most fabulous sexgod.com. MFsexgod.com.
Yeah.
All right, April, thank you so much for being here with me today and helping to hopefully demystify this stuff about sex. And although we did, jump into talking about a play party here in the end, I feel like we provided some good knowledge base so that people who may not understand Tantra may better understand what's available for them with the tantric toolbox, as I like to refer to it. And again, thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.
All right. Thanks, JJ. Thank you, everybody in the group.
All right.